Welcome to Flex with Purpose, the podcast where we explore what it means to move toward our highest potential, not for personal gain or applause, but to strengthen others and to make the world a better place. I'm your host, Schalee Sanchez, and I am so glad that you're with us today. Every conversation is with someone who is leading authentically, living boldly, and letting humility guide their impact. Today, I am thrilled that Dr. Kyle Thompson is joining us. He is extremely knowledgeable, has a wealth of just incredible things to share with us today. So I am very excited. I know that you're going to be inspired and encouraged by what he has to say. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us on Flex with Purpose. We are glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, Schalee. This is incredible. I am super honored to be here today. A little nervous, but let's see if I can hopefully share something that you guys will enjoy. Yeah.
Well, as an athlete, I think that we both understand how those nerves actually build up that adrenaline to make it a better experience, right? So I'm glad you're feeling nervous.
Nervousness is always just a sign of something you're doing, something that's a little bit important in some way, right? Like your nervous system's like, what's happening here, right? And I've learned to just lean into it. It's a pathway to greater living.
Totally agree. That's the best way to handle it. Speaking of being an athlete, one of the misconceptions about humility is that people think, well, if I'm going to be humble, then I can't talk about what I've accomplished. I can't talk about my big wins. I can't talk about what I've done, which actually true humility, when we share those things with humility, it inspires people. So I want you to talk about your accomplishments, the big wins that you've had, the things that were meaningful to you, and kind of what that has been like for you in your journey.
Oh man, what a loaded question. I think that, like you said, humility is a driving force for learning, right? If like I like to take the approach of having a student or a learner's mindset or lifelong learning, right? And in my opinion, in order to continue to lead in an authentic way, humility is an essential part of that. Because you can't learn if you already think that you have the answer. And so for me, my life, I've tried to embody just being authentic, and also just like coming from the perspective that I don't have it all figured out, and that if I just keep putting one foot in front of the other, then all the steps will kind of put themselves in place, right? So for me, kind of in my journey, I have a couple big things that at least recently, that have kind of embodied that, so to speak. For guys like for listening, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. But I'm also a rehab specialist by trade, and so I work with people on a day-to-day basis, helping them get out of an injury state or out of pain and back to kind of living the life that they want to live. I work with people on a day-to-day basis. Helping people get to a higher state of being is humbly the only way that I can do that. And so, I've worked with people who have had debilitating pain and injury in their life, and back to being able to live with their families and do fun things and smile again. So a big win that I've had recently was that I had a gentleman with a double laminectomy and a double discectomy in his lumbar spine, basically meaning they cut out a bunch of his low back, and he went from barely being able to walk to hiking up and down mountains in Colorado, which was huge for him. And he cried and gave me a hug, and when he said thank you very much for that. And so a second win after that would be, I just got a message today from a guy that I've been working with off and on for a few months, that he's a firefighter, and he hasn't been able to climb a ladder or do anything other than drive the fire truck. And he said he played with his son for the first time, pain-free, in his backyard for the first time in 8 years. So I would say, some big wins would be those. I would say those are why I get up in the morning.
Okay, your answer just highlights exactly who you are and why I wanted you to join this podcast, Kyle. I have noticed this over and over again. And I first met you in March of this year, right? I limped
Mm-hmm.
into your clinic in tears. I
Mm-hmm.
was unable to move my right leg. I was in extreme pain, numb
Yep.
from the knee down, and had no idea what was going on in my body. And you got me to the place where today I was able to run 2 miles with no pain. So, I'm another one of your success stories, right? I've walked this
Yep.
journey and I've
Yep.
seen how you care for people. And it's been so impacting to me to watch just exactly what you were talking about, how despite the fact that you are already extremely knowledgeable and have learned so much to this point, that with me, in my specific case, you went to other doctors and you went to your mentor and you said, "Hey, is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that I can be doing different?" It just impacted me so powerfully to see your humility as you were caring for me. So, incredible, incredible the way that, you live this out on a daily basis. So I'd love for you to talk about what a typical day for you is. How is your day structured, and how do you fill your calendar? What does that look like for you?
Oh man, that's a great question. To answer that, I do have to be a little long-winded.
Hey, you've
And
got
as
all
you
the
guys
time you
listen to
need
this,
right here, man.
sweet, sweet. So like a little bit back to you, I think that this kind of goes back to my philosophy on just helping people and treating and working with people in injury and helping them overcome issues, is that the human body is incredibly complex. And so, and I consider myself kind of a normal person in terms of my intelligence. I just work really, really hard at what I do. And so it takes me a while to get all the information into my brain, but once it's there, it's there. And so kind of back to you, it's even though I've treated people with the same type of situation as you went through, I think that everybody is a little different, and there are people at it that are better than I am. And if I can call on somebody, or if I can read a new book, or I can, every time something like that happens, or somebody comes in with your particular issue that we worked with, is that I can always be better at helping somebody faster. And that is comes down to the minuscule decision you make on how often, how long, how much, that it takes to do X, Y, or Z treatment or professional, or there's always a better way. And because that there's a better way, that I have to be humble enough to be able to ask for help to help somebody else, because that enables my success, which enables your success. So I'm just a conduit and a guide for my patients. So if I come at it from a place of ego, I'm actually preventing my patients from getting better. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it's not up to me. It's not my job. Really, my job's to find the best way forward for you and facilitate that healing for you. It's not because of me. It's just, I'm just transferring information along the chain. And so if I can call somebody to help us move faster, why not? I'm doing you a disservice if I don't do that. So, and I've had people do the same for me, which is ultimately kind of how I got into this profession. But to kind of fully explain that a little bit, but because of that, that also drives kind of my day to day. So because of the way that I practice, and because our healthcare system nowadays doesn't really enable providers to spend time with people, is that because I spend time with people, I have to inherently provide a better service for people. So not only if I take the time, we have to get the result. So the result is, one, what you want, but two, what is realistic depending on the condition or the thing that you come in with.
Mhm.
So my day consists of two things: entrepreneurship and clinical mastery. And so it's a dance. My day is always a dance between how can I get better today clinically by either working on with my patients, because private practice is literally practice for us and practicing on our craft, but also what can I do today to be better clinically? Do I need to read an extra, research article, or take another course, or work on something? this way, or be more present with the people I'm with. And then the other half of my day is, what things do I need to be better with my marketing messaging? Do I need to hop on something like this and spread the message that I'm trying to spread? And then do I need to post on Instagram or create an email or go talk to somebody or go do a workout? So like my days vary between doing things in person, meeting new people, writing emails, doing Instagram, like kind of having that entrepreneurship type of thing where I'm trying to build my business, but also but building it off of that mindset of like, hey, how can I do a better job in the time slots that I have to make sure that I command the time that I need in order to be an effective clinician for my patients. So all of it's kind of rooted, my days are rooted in this like dance between what do I need to do today that's the most effective for the business, but also the most effective for my clinical sphere. So it's kind of all over the place. But to walk you through a day, to answer your question directly, is that maybe I either get up between 5 and 6. I am trying to get to the clinic or get to a gym or meet somebody for a coffee anywhere between 7 and 9. And then I'm at the clinic from pretty much 9:30 to 7:30, where I'm either hopping on calls with people, calling past patients. I'm starting to see patients, writing emails, doing Instagram posts, responding to people, taking classes. And then once I'm done there, then I go home and I'll continue the process. So that's generally what a normal day looks like for me. Or I'll end the day with going to an event of some kind for another business to help support people in my community, going to another gym class to support a friend of mine, or meet new people. And so, I'm the way that I practice requires me to be constantly present in the community that I'm in. It's one way or another. And so it's kind of always a dance between learning and implementing. So action and planning, essentially.
I don't want our listeners to miss something really significant that you said, though. So I just want to repeat this. You said that if you let your ego get
Sure.
elevated and get in the way, then your clients, your patients are the ones that suffer from that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that
Mm-hmm.
is such a powerful truth and something to be aware of constantly, that if we let arrogance and pride get in the way, then it's not gonna only cause damage in our own life, it causes damage in the other people that we're influencing. Just
Mm-hmm.
am, again, so thankful for your choosing to live out humility in a way that, like you said, makes it possible for you in an ongoing desire to learn and grow, reach out and ask somebody, "Hey, I've got this case. What could I do differently? What am I missing? I need your help with this."
Mm-hmm.
That is such a valuable thing to learn to say. I need your help.
It's interesting, right? Because go back to the point you made. It's like, leading with humility also means, confidence in a way too. But how, it's kind of a misnomer. It's like, how can you be humble but yet confident at the same time? And I think it's an interesting misnomer, is that, you can be confident in what you know, but also confident in the fact that there is unknown, and confidence in your ability to change with new information. Right? So
Mm,
like, it's
yeah,
confident
that's
in your
good.
ability to solve problems. You know what I mean? And like,
Mhm.
and being humble enough to change your mind. Right? Like, for
Yeah.
example, in my life, right? Like I don't have the luxury almost to be egotistical, because if I do, to your point, if I decide something and this is what this is, and I don't do a good job making sure that that is the proper way to do, or this is the direction we need to go, and change depending on if there's new information coming in, then I am intentionally misleading somebody. You know what I mean? And so I think that having the humility, like you said, and the confidence in knowing that you have to change because of just how things go, means that you can lead, but also lead knowing that it's okay to change. Like it doesn't mean that you're weak, or it doesn't mean that you made a wrong decision. Is that we just know inherently, like with the information we have in front of us, this is how we should move forward, and just pivoting based on whenever there's roadblocks, right? Like, and I think that's just an analogy for life, just in general, where it's like, hey, there's a new situation, let's do something else, right?
Yeah, this is so awesome the way that you're bringing this point so clearly to us about, yes, confidence is important, it's valuable. And having the confidence
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you are always right in what you have done up to
Mm-hmm.
this point. It's also having the confidence to be willing to change and willing to look at something differently and willing to
Mm-hmm.
grow and willing to learn something. That takes
Mm-hmm.
confidence. It takes courage, honestly, to be able to do that. And so I'm really glad that you brought that into this conversation. Um, as you were talking about your typical day, and it's basically you don't have a typical day. It's all it's all over the place. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted you to touch on something a little bit that also shows just your heart and the way that you share the knowledge that you have, because as I've had an opportunity to interact with several of the interns at Parker University through my treatment, um, I've learned that you intentionally lead a lot of groups and activities and ways that you are sharing your knowledge with these interns. And so tell us a little bit about your motivation behind that and what that looks like for you and your intentionality of doing that.
Oh, great. Wow. Yeah, so what Schalee just described, guys, is like I am the regional mentor, or the unofficial regional mentor for 3 student-led organizations at Park University. They have named me that. That wasn't my own designation to myself. But really what I do is, since I'm a local doc in the field that's willing to give my time to some of these student organizations, I invest a lot in those students to help them become better clinicians. Not necessarily trying to create more versions of me, so to speak, but also to kind of help expose them to new levels of new standards of care that they could provide for their patients. And that stems from a desire for 2 reasons. One, to be a better instructor and teacher just for me as a person, because if I think the highest form of learning is by teaching. And so if I can teach peers of mine to be better at their prospective jobs, then I'm at least having an impact on the students and in my profession. And then 2, I do it because I never had it while I was in school. And so when I was in school, I graduated in the heat of COVID in December of 2020, when the job market was ripe full of new opportunities for young graduates and people who wanted to be worked on physically. I just had finished a 6-month rotation at a private practice in St. Louis, Missouri, with a bunch of new knowledge that I had gained, that I had an exposure that I had become familiar with, that I had no exposure with prior to it during my time at Parker. And so I wanted to share the knowledge that I was taught, because I felt a little angry that we didn't have more exposure to that while in school, because frankly, I think it makes quite a bit of a difference for people and clinical practice. And so seeing miracles day in and day out was it made me angry that wasn't more the standard of care, so to speak. And so I wanted to bring that level of clinical excellence that I was exposed to my home community, because there's 8 million people who live here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I think we can do a better job. You know what I mean? Like I just frankly think we can do a better job, and there's a lot of people that need help. And so it was my way of giving back to a group of people who helped me tremendously. And then through that community, I kind of became an unofficial influencer. And so I end up leading a lot of unofficial, off the books, just workshops for students, just to help them out, just to show them like, hey guys, like this is what real practice is like. This is what you signed up for. These are options that you have available to you so you can help your communities.
Yeah, so I see it like when you drop this rock into a lake and it just has this ripple effect. Like everything that you share is going out to these students, and then all of their patients are benefiting from that as well,
Mm-hmm.
which is so
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm. If it's a rippling effect, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
it's like, and I always tell them, I go, look, guys, like I'm just one guy. I'm just showing you one way on how to do things. Uh, I'm not even the best at every little bit of the ingredient that I use. That's the toolbox that I have. I know how to use in clinical practice, guys. There's lots of different things and treatments that we can use in healthcare. Whether you go see a medical provider and get prescriptions, or you see somebody like myself and like a chiropractor and I do adjustments and dry needling and exercise. Those are different ways that we can help you. But there's specific techniques that we can use for different situations. And the number is up in the thousands on how many there are. And so like, having a better toolbox enables you to help more things. And so if I can help them have a better toolbox, even though I may not be the master craftsman of a Phillips head, but I know how to use it. I also know how to use a hammer. I also know how to use a saw. I also know how to do like all the different tools in the metaphorical tool belt we're talking about. Then I can at least share that, be like, hey guys, this, I might not be the best, but this is this stuff. Go learn more about it on your own, but this is how you generally use it. And so, it's like an iron sharpens iron type scenario. If I can communicate it to them, I'm automatically better at what I do selfishly, but then I can apply it in a way that helps multiple people, not just myself, but other people. And also it reflects in my patient care where, hey, like humility wise, like I know I'm like, may not necessarily be the best, but I know this can absolutely help you. And that helps ripple through the community. It's helped me become a little bit more of a presence in the world, which is cool. If it never if that's, even if that never happened, I'd still do it because I truly enjoy teaching. It's one of my passions, and it's a core value of mine is that to teach and learn daily. And if I can do that, then I'm living my highest form of that, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I just keep thinking of just the multiplication of benefits as
Mm-hmm.
you are mentoring these students,
Mm-hmm.
you're improving your own practice, which
Mm-hmm.
benefits your patients and
Mm-hmm.
your colleagues. It
Mm-hmm.
benefits these students and
Mm-hmm.
everyone who they're going to touch.
Mm-hmm.
And it just has this incredibly um, powerful multiplication,
Mm-hmm.
right? That just keeps
Mm-hmm.
going and going and going. Um,
Mm-hmm. I am a product
so,
of that from the person I learned from. So like I'm just a ripple in the chain. It goes way even further than I do. I'm just one of the latest iterations of that.
well, that was one of the points that I wanted to get to, as you were talking
Mhm.
about that you are mentoring these students. I am
Mhm.
also aware that you have a mentor and you intentionally
Yep.
seek that out. In fact, you
Mhm.
just made a trip out to Arizona to spend time with your mentor. So, talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that in regards to how you are seeking out these ways to continue growing and learning.
We kind of, I think too, it goes back to the teach and learn daily core value that I have.
Mhm.
Is that when you see like mentorship, I look at education. I have, side note is that I have a doctorate, two masters, and two bachelor's degrees. So I have 5 degrees, which is insane. I don't know how that happened, but here it is. And so I've been in the system for a long time. I was a professional student essentially, and and education is great, right? But I've found, at least in my field, that if you don't apply it, it doesn't go anywhere, right? And
Mhm.
and if you don't apply it, it's just knowledge, right? Applying it is the application of wisdom. Knowledge is just wisdom through action, or wisdom is knowledge through action. There you go. And so I think that, like, even though I might have, a lot of background and exposure to a lot of different things, is that I want to be around people who've done it before me,
Mhm.
right? I wanted to be around people who are doing it better than me. I want to be around people who talk the same language, who are doing it at the highest levels, because I think that's the coolest thing ever. and and if I can get to that level, then I can help more people and create a life that I really am fulfilled by. And so mentorship is an essential part of that. Formal education is great, but on the job training is just as important, if not more important as well. Experience, it means everything, especially with the complex nature of the human existence. And so I seek out mentorship to enrich my experience in my profession, to learn from people who've been before me, to not necessarily make the same mistakes, or at least if I am, not making them over and over again, and having a soundboard of somebody who has wisdom, being like, no, I understand where you're coming from, but this way might be better. Have you ever thought about that? So I seek out mentorship to challenge my own way of thinking, and for somebody who's wiser than me to tell me that I'm full of crap sometimes. And um, so mentorship for me is a way. It's a glimpse into the future, right? So I'm seeking out people who are doing it, who are way further ahead than me, and I'm looking at them going, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is how we could do better. And then building a relationship with them to have a dialogue, um, to help kind of refine that process forward, right? So that's why I seek the mentorship aspect of things. But I think that wisdom, knowledge is great, and wisdom is great, but you got to seek it from different sources. And I think this is kind of where you develop the mentee aspect. Is that you know everyone wants to be mentored, but we don't necessarily want to bring a whole lot to the equation. We just want to receive. And I think
Mhm.
knowing, just like, hey, in order to receive, you do have to give.
Right.
And so, my mentor is a mentor of mine because I serve on a nonprofit board, doing leadership education and communication education for students in the same kind of capacity. And because of my involvement voluntarily pro bono, that I've had access to somebody who's been doing it longer, who's willing to give me their time. Because at the end of the day, our time is our most valuable asset, whether
Yes.
you are super young or super old, or whether you realize it or not, or the finite resource we all have is time. And so, being mentored by somebody that's way ahead of you, that has what you want, and is doing the things that you want, you have to be able to, give something of value to them, whether it's your time, whether it's your energy, whether it's your service, whether it's monetarily, right? Then to be able to have access to them and their time, and draw from their well of wisdom, and to help you move forward. So, my mentor, his name's Jeff. He practices in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Jeff has become a great friend of mine, even though he's about 25 years older than I am. But he's a wonderful human being, and he's willing to give his time, because he's essentially me 25 years from now. So, and he's just like doing the thing that I really want to do. Now, I'm probably going to do it a little differently, but so is everybody when they have that. But, you know, I think, just but putting forth my time, developing a relationship with him and his staff, has been life changing for me. And so, for me, I like to make trips out to invest in that relationship, to spend time, to just pick his brain, talk shop, have fun, play golf, just do the things. So, if you're seeking mentorship, there's a lot of different avenues, but I think of it as like long, networking, so to speak. Like, hey, like, how can I
Mhm.
build a really great relationship with somebody who's way further down the road, and how can I offer any value to them? And in
Mhm.
return, you get enrichment, right? So that's how I look at that.
Thank you, Kyle, for sharing that. There's so many good nuggets in what you just talked about. One of the things, though, that I'm just going to mention because I hope that our listeners caught this, and maybe some of them were as shocked as I was when I first found this out about you. When you mentioned that you have 5 degrees,
Uh-huh.
I would have totally expected you to be this cocky because tell us how old you are.
32.
So you're 32 with 5 degrees. And so kind of the expectation is, yeah, he's going to be this cocky guy who thinks he knows everything and is just going to want to do it his way. And I was blown away by how humble you were. But all the things that you've talked about and all the things that you've shared are what really exemplify that kind of heart. So, what keeps you
Yeah.
grounded in that kind of humility?
Who, well, a couple things. You know, I say this a little bit. It's like, because I have my own personal things that I work through, just like anybody else. But, um, I had an experience once. It was, so I mean, like all, like everybody, you go, you start learning stuff, and, well, there's two things, right? I guess I'll say with this. So in the beginning, is anybody, if you haven't heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, I highly recommend you look it up. But the Dunning-Kruger effect essentially means that when you first learn something, or you first learn about something, your confidence as in knowing the material is at an all-time high within a few months or years of learning something. But the more you study and the more you learn, the actually your confidence drops to, like, you know, all-time low levels and stays there for a long period of time. And eventually, over time, the longer you pursue the subject, your confidence rises back up, but never to the same degree as when you first learned it. Is because when you, and I'm sure there's multiple areas in everyone's lives that we can identify with that. But for me, in the beginning, absolutely, I was incredibly cocky, especially when, I'm going through all this learning, and I, have all this stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, that's what that is, and this is what that is. Absolutely, 100%. I was very guilty of doing that. Clinical practice has a way of humbling you. It really does. Like, I've always had this in me, just to be like this, because I've just known that I just never knew everything, and I just knew that if I, like, other people were better than me, that are lots of different things, and so I just knew that I wasn't like the guy, but I knew that if I worked really, really hard, I could be somebody of great importance, and so I just always knew, partially because of my parents instilling that in me, but just working hard was just part of the deal. But when I started learning and like doing all the education, absolutely, ego's through the roof. And then, and then I had the opportunity to work with a gentleman, let's call him Roy. I did 1,000-hour rotation in the cardiac rehab ward of Covenant Hospital in Lubbock, Texas, when I was a Red Raider. And Roy had HIV, and he was in the last stages of the disease. And so he was pretty much on death's door. And I had the opportunity to kind of oversee some of his exercise when he would come to the clinic, but he'd have to be sequestered, and he couldn't talk or interact with really anybody. And a lot of personal protective equipment and testing had to be done because of his condition. And I sat with him for many months while he would work out, and he was declining rapidly. And he just told me one day, he was like, Kyle, like, the reason I come here is because of the community and to be able to talk to you. And so, like, that was where I really learned, like, oh man, like, nothing I do can help this guy. And it really humbled me in the face of just death. He passed while we were working together, and it was the first time I'd really kind of been close with somebody, and knowing that they, like, seeing them every day, and then just one day they weren't. That was kind of, I wouldn't say traumatic, but it was definitely it was hard. And so that kind of put things into perspective for me. Is like, this guy also was a double board certified radiologist. And so he was as knowledgeable as it could, and in the face of life, it didn't really matter in the end. And so, but he told me something. He told me something. He's like, Kyle, he's like, at the end of the day, like it's about, connecting with others and giving hope and really being able to help others. Use your knowledge to help other people. He's
Mhm.
like, all that knowledge in my brain's great, but if you don't put it to use, like, what good is that? And so, my time with Roy was really impactful for me. And then, years go by, I started learning more stuff again. It was always in the back of my mind, but uh, I ended up getting into private practice, and I just immediately knew, because like first patient did not go very well for me in practice, just because somebody's in pain wasn't exactly what my clinical training was prepared me for. And so life has a way of kind of knocking you back down if you're willing to participate. But I found that most of the lessons that I got were from living and listening to others. And so while I viewed education being super impactful, I would rather people underestimate me and let me use my work and my focus and my work ethic to kind of show the way, but also speak from a place of authenticity. So yeah, I could absolutely act arrogantly with all the education I have, but I found that that's all just um, smoke and mirrors in the face of just like what reality is really like, and helping and in the people that I'm supposed to help with. I mean, for example, right? Like you prepare really hard for a certain thing, and then you don't do very well at it, right? Like imagine, like, I mean, you train for a race, right? Like you might think you're the most effective, fast runner on the course. You're going to smoke everybody on the course. I was a track athlete in college, so I absolutely felt this way. I'm going to be the best. And then somebody rolls around and absolutely humbles you because you were just, no matter how hard you train, they're just better. Or you
Yeah.
didn't do really well. You didn't show up well. Like life has a way of slapping you in the face. Well, clinical practice is exactly the same. Like you just absolutely get smacked around all the time. So my knowledge helps me, but it only got me to the party, so to speak. So yeah, if that makes sense, right? So like life's had a funny way of like telling me, yes, this is important, but it's not everything.
Well, I am extremely grateful to Roy and what he taught you,
Hmm. Hmm.
because you definitely care about the connection part with
Hmm.
your patients, with everybody that you interact with. It's very obvious. But in these last few
Hmm.
minutes, Kyle, what do you want to leave with the listeners? Is there one more truth or one more encouragement that you want to end this
Yeah.
time with?
I think that, we could talk for hours, right? But I think if you had to put it down into one thing, I think the biggest lesson that at least I could share right now is that, a lot of people, including myself, get anxious about new things, and leading and trying to create change for ourselves in our lives. Or like, for example, like leading with humility, right? Like we sometimes don't quite know what that looks like, or what it would look like for me to teach these students, or start a new business, or help another person, or take a leap of faith on a specific action. But I found that if you don't do anything, nothing happens. And so, having the humility to kind of walk one foot in front of the other and just can focus on the path itself and taking the next step, is that the action itself is the antidote to all the anxiety that you have. Right. And so it's interesting that the cure to most uncertainty, the most unknowingness, the anxiety, the depression, the lack of motivation is actually through action. And
Right.
so, if I have to leave you guys with anything, like, in my life, right, in order for me to grow my practice, for me to enhance my skill, to me to have the impact that I need to have, I have to take massive action. And for, years I knew that, but I didn't do it. And I'm doing it now, and it's working. So if there's anything I can convey, is that just go for it. Like, just make sure you plan it out and then go, okay, this is what I got to do. And then you do it. That's it. And the answer to most things is just that, at least in my life
Uh,
currently.
yeah, I love that. It's so simple that
Hmm.
action is the antidote for anxiety.
Hmm.
And I just really appreciate you, Kyle, so much. Thank you for everything that you've shared.
Hmm.
And this has been a great conversation. I know that our listeners will benefit tremendously from it. and the best to you. I wish you the
Thank
best
you.
as you
Thank you.
continue
Same.
to grow in your practice.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. This was an honor. I really enjoyed this.